I have dominion over what my thinking should be. I must maintain my God-given dominion, for the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And I am not outside that fullness. I am its life, its law, its quiet order. And if in any moment I find a tightening in the neck, a pressure behind the eyes, a breath that turns shallow, I cannot hide from what that means. If I feel strain, I am not in dominion. I have slipped into personal control, and that, let me speak it plainly, is misidentification. That is not the I. That is Joel trying to manage God. The whirl of thoughts would pour in like floodwaters. They would announce to me the urgency of the clock, the headline, the ledger, the diagnosis, the opinion. They would press upon the mind and body with their anxious decrees, and they would, if I allowed it, overwhelm me. But I cannot permit this. I cannot permit fear to enter and sit as magistrate over my consciousness. I stand here the porter at the door of thought. I stand here a tiler over my mind and my body. Nothing that defileth may enter this holy city of awareness. Why? Because dominion is not force. Dominion is presence. Be still and know that I am God. The knowing is the dominion. The stillness is the authority. When I am straining, I have forgotten to be still. I have made a little God out of personal effort. Now listen closely, because here is the modern confusion that has robbed many of their peace. Some have thought surrender means collapse. Give up your office. Resign your function. Let life do with you what it will. And others have thought authority means domination. Take charge of people. Press outcomes into a shape. Tighten the hand until the knuckles whiten. Both are children of the same era, taking the personal sense of self as the governor. It is not so. Dominion is not Joel. Never mix Joel and I. Not even that appearance will I accept that Joel has any power to save, to heal, to prosper, or to rule. The I that governs is a gentle I, not an egotistical I, not a swashbuckler with spiritual phrases. Take my yoke upon you, said the Master, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Dominion bears lightness. It never loads the back with sandbags of management. I must observe myself with truthfulness. When I catch myself leaning forward in the chair, as if the spine could push the world into order, I know I have slipped. When the heartbeat accelerates, because an outcome must be forced into being, I know I have left the sanctuary of I am and entered the brittle vestibule of I can. That is the bell. That is the alarm that says misidentification. I do not condemn myself for the bell. I heed it. I do not argue with a feeling. I interpret it. Strain is my teacher saying, you have mistaken the manager for the governor. You have enthroned an image and demoted the I. Therefore, I assume conscious dominion now, and I assume it gently. I do not take hold of a whip. I take hold of identity. Let not your heart be troubled. Not because I have resigned from life, but because I have resigned from anxiety's throne. I surrender, but I do not collapse. I lay down the sword of the ego's control, and I abide in the scepter of quiet knowing. In quietness and confidence is my strength. I let the gentle I stand forth. I then am the peace that orders thought without pushing it, that calms the body without forcing it, that governs circumstances by the law of being, not by the panic of doing. Keep this as the foundation of all that follows. If I feel strained, it is personal control, masquerading as dominion. I cannot permit that deception to rule a single hour. My aim is not to manage the river. My aim is to discover that I am the bed on which it flows, the presence that gives it course. And in that discovery, outcomes find their place without my fingers trying to hold the stars in socket. I and the Father are one. I am that I am. Here, without tightening, without forcing, without the anxious need to make anything happen, I rest in the calm that proves true authority. Now, the next step never mixed Joel and I. Do you remember that I did not say my oneness with God, my conscious oneness with God? That single correction is the hinge upon which your entire practice turns. For the personal sense, which I will call Joel, longs for credit, for proof, for guarantees. It wants a receipt for every prayer, a headline for every healing, a buffer account around every fear. Joel is a manager. It tabulates, it negotiates, it produces reports. But the I that sits at the center of being is a governor. It is silent, stable, authorized, and needs nothing from a witness stand. I can of mine own self do nothing, said the Master. The Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. Translate that into your practice. Joel can of himself do nothing. I within me doeth the works. Therefore I cannot permit Joel to seize the scepter even for 5 seconds. Not to announce a miracle, not to defend a position, not to tighten the jaw for an outcome. I must not grant personal possession of power, not even a respectable little share. For the instant I take credit, I take strain. Dominion begins exactly where I stop taking ownership and let the gentle I stand forth. Not a swashbuckling I, not a theatrical I, not a loud I, for he shall not strive, nor cry, neither shall any man hear his voice in the streets. The I that governs is meek and immovable, invisible and irresistible, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. Now let me correct you, because this is where many stumble. When you say, my oneness with God, you have already domesticated infinity into an ornament you wear, and ornaments must be displayed, defended, insured. No, conscious oneness is not a possession. It is an awareness to be assumed and maintained. I assume it not with fanfare, but with inward consent. I maintain it not with argument, but with fidelity. I refuse to let Joel pace the floor while the I abides on the throne. The kingdom of God is within you, within, not on the tongue, but in the heart. Not on the resume, but in the still small voice. Here is your simple diagnostic. When I feel driven to announce, to argue, to prove, I am already in Joel. If I must stamp my foot to be believed, I am not in dominion. If I rehearse speeches of authority to persuade others, I am not in dominion. Dominion needs no defense. It is like the weight of a mountain, utterly quiet, yet it answers any challenge by being what it is. Let your yea be yea, and your nay, nay. Because when I am I, the atmosphere settles, the body yields, the circumstance aligns, not by decree, but by recognition. Do not imagine that I am authorizing boastful I ams to parade through your affairs. Put up thy sword. The moment you turn the teaching into a saber, I am this, I am that, and wield it upon persons, conditions, or institutions, you have handed Joel a uniform and told him to play God. That is tyranny, not dominion. The gentle I governs without bruise. The gentle I enters the sick room and says nothing, and health remembers itself. The gentle I steps into a quarrel and speaks only if bidden, and harmony reappears as if it had never left. If you must prove, you have not proved. If you must win, you have already lost the center. Now, yes, make this practical. In the instant of temptation, the phone rings with urgency. The email inflames the nerves. The calendar crowds. Before a single word is sent, I pause. I silently say within, Joel is not the governor. The I that is before Abraham was. I am. I do not rush to explain. I do not assemble witnesses. I return to that inner throne where the Father doeth the works. In that returning, breath evens, thought unknots, and the next act is given, not forced. Be still and know that I am God. Be still, first, no second, act third. That order is the seal against misrule. From this center I can then speak truly. I am the bread of life to this moment. I am the resurrection and the life to this body. I am immortality breaking the sentence of fear. But hear me, this is said in the secret place, not into the marketplace for admiration. This is identity recognized, not identity performed. I and the Father are one is not a slogan, it is a state. Therefore, I assume conscious dominion now by refusing personal credit and relinquishing personal guarantees. I let the gentle I stand forth. I abide. I consent. I remain. And because I remain, life organizes around the stillness, not around the will. This is the core distinction. This is the clean boundary. Never mix Joel and I. Keep the I pure, unboastful, invulnerable. And in that purity, dominion dawns without strain, without noise, without the faintest need to prove what already is. Now we come to the inner office of dominion. I take my post. I stand here, the porter at the door of thought. I stand here, a tiler over my mind and my body. And I make this vow, nothing shall enter my mind or body that defileth, because I stand in my rightful jurisdiction. There shall in no wise enter into it anything that defileth, says the scripture of the holy city. And I am that city within. I am that sanctuary. Therefore, I assume conscious dominion now, not with clenched fists, but with a quiet, lawful watchfulness. I keep my heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Understand me. This is not repression. This is not shoving thoughts into a basement and locking the door while they breathe in the dark. This is rightful government. This is admitting only what bears the king's seal and refusing what is only a rumor of fear. Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are of good report, think on these things. The porter is not angry. The tiler does not brandish a sword in the street. They check the badge. They verify the pass. They let peace through and deny entry to suggestion. A fear knocks. Who sent you? By what authority do you claim a seat in this temple? No seal, no entry. An old grievance presents itself dressed as justice. Where is the signature of love? Where is the stamp of truth? No mark, no passage. This is government, not suppression. Discernment, not violence. Now listen to the mechanics of strain, for I must see where I err. Strain begins when Joel abandons the gate and runs down the street to fix the traffic. He micromanages persons, diagnoses, schedules, markets, and weather, and at day's end wonders why the city is overrun. While the gate stood open, suggestion marched in and took the throne. That is misrule. Dominion never begins by wrestling conditions. Dominion begins within. I, in this instant, take my post. I shut the door to fear, to judgment, to sensationalism, to gossip. I open it to love, to truth, to the still small voice. And because I govern the within, The without falls into lawful order. Be still and know that I am God. Be still first. That is gatekeeping. Know second. That is admission of truth. Act last. That is the movement of a governed realm. Make this exact in practice. A report arrives with foreboding numbers. Before I reach for a calculator, I reach for the key. Set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth. Keep the door of my lips, and before my lips, the door of my thought. I stand. I ask, is this fear, truth, or suggestion? Does it carry the fragrance of love? Does it witness to abundance that is already the Lord's? If not, it is denied jurisdiction. I am not arguing statistics. I am recognizing authority, or the body presents a pang. Do I rush to command the pang? No. I return to office. I establish. I am the life of this body. I am the law unto this organism. The law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus hath made me free. I admit only that law. I do not repress sensation. I refuse to enthrone it as law. I do not fight the shadow on the wall. I turn on the light, and the shadow loses its vote. Hear the cadence that trains the mind to obedience. I watch. I refuse. I admit only truth. I maintain dominion. Again, I watch. I refuse. I admit only truth. I maintain dominion. And again, until the nervous habit breaks and the holy habit forms. This is the office. This is the daily keeping of the gate at dawn, at noon, at evening. When the world presses its case with headlines and alarms, I do not step into the riot. I step into the inner court. I and the Father are one. I seat the eye on the throne and let the government rest upon his shoulder. Do not confuse this with a dramatic display. The tiler's authority is quiet. He shall not strive, nor cry. The porter does not gossip about who was refused. He simply refuses. In that simplicity, the city remains clean. In that cleanliness, body and affairs reveal their native order without strain. When the within is kept holy, the without cannot long remain ungoverned. For only that can be externalized, which is the state of consciousness. Therefore, I do not run to fix appearances until I have first established the government within. I take my post. I hold my peace. And I let the law of being rule. I watch. I refuse. I admit only truth. I maintain dominion. And in that silent office, the realm is safe. Now we must correct a very old error. Because if I permit it to remain, the practice will drift into either lethargy or tyranny. There are three postures offered to us in the pressure of life. First, passivity, that is abdication. Second, control, that is personal forcing. Third, dominion, that is God-given governance. I cannot accept the first, and I must outgrow the second in order to abide in the third. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength, not in collapse, and certainly not in compulsion. Passivity whispers, let go, and it means go to sleep. It pulls the shades. It turns the back on duty. It calls apathy, faith, and refusal, prudence. That is not surrender. That is absence. And control, its boastful twin, seizes the wheel with white knuckles, calculates, intimidates, manipulates outcomes, and calls anxiety stewardship. That is not dominion. That is fear in uniform. Dominion, the only spiritual posture, is this. I surrender the counterfeit manager Joel, but I do not surrender my right to stand in truth. I lay down personal management. I take up God-given office. I do not abdicate. I abide. Hear the ladder of consciousness in this. The human mind says, let go, and it falls asleep. Spirit says, be still, and it becomes awake. The human sense collapses under the weight of circumstance. The gentle eye takes the throne within and watches, refuses, admits only truth. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Stand still is not lie down. It is not swoon. It is not retreat. Stand still is the posture of a sentinel at the gate. Be still and know is not be lax in hope. It is the sobriety of presence that knows what it is about. Now let me show it where you live. A conflict arises. An email arrives, barbed with accusation. The body heats. The mind races to defend. The fingers reach for the sword. I cannot permit this. I do not give in, which would be to reply with apology for survival and then nurse resentment in secret. I do not fight, which would be to enlist allies, gather evidence, and multiply heat for heat. I stand, I return to office, I gently breathe the I on the exhale until the inner temperature drops. I say within, not to the person, but to my own awareness. I am not Joel trying to win. I am the I and the Father are one. Put up thy sword. I let the first wave pass without action. When the breath has remembered its rhythm and the nerves have ceased their drum, then and only then do I answer, if answer is given me to make. Sometimes the answer is a simple yea or nay, free of heat. Sometimes it is silence, and the event dissolves without my signature. Sometimes it is a clear correction delivered without 1 ounce of spite. And sometimes I am led to apologize where I add not to capitulate to a person, but to submit to truth. Make no mistake, this is not yielding to human pressure. It is yielding to spiritual government. In that yielding, the tyranny of reaction breaks, and harmony appears as if it had been there all along. Resist not evil is not moral weakness. It is refusal to give evil a second life in my own consciousness. Therefore, I define surrender rightly. I surrender the urge to run the show. I surrender the fantasy that outcomes are safer in my fists than in my Father's hands. But I do not surrender the gate. I keep my post. I do not surrender the throne of awareness. I remain. I abide. I hold the scepter of stillness and let the government rest upon his shoulder. The gentle eye does not abdicate. It abides. And in that abiding, authority returns without strain. Wisdom speaks without noise. Breath slows without command. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Wait does not mean loiter. Wait means stand as servant in attendance, alert, listening, ready. This is surrender, not collapse. This is dominion, not control. And in this posture, life reveals its order because I have ceased pretending to supply it. Now, the next step, and let me say it without softening it for human pride, error is impersonal. Let me repeat that. Error is impersonal. It is not Joel being wicked, nor your neighbor being perverse. It is hypnotism, mesmerism, suggestion, the world thought seeking an outlet. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, which is to say we are not wrestling people. We are dealing with suggestion posing as person. The urge to seize control, the surge of fear that tightens the throat, the impulse to manage outcomes with anxiety's fist. These are not who I am. These are suggestions. They knock. They demand identity papers. And unless the porter is on duty, they sit down in the sanctuary and call themselves me. I cannot permit this. I must maintain my God-given dominion by refusing to grant suggestion a name tag with my name on it. When the impulse to control rises a heat in the chest, an acceleration of breath, I do not accept authorship. I do not say I am a controlling person. No, I stand the porter at the door of thought, and I ask, who sent you? Where is your seal? Are you love? Are you truth? Are you the peace that passes understanding? If not, you are impersonal suggestion, and you have no jurisdiction here. Get thee behind me, Satan, does not mean insult the circumstance. It means I identify hypnotism as hypnotism and deny it my identity. Apply it inwardly first, because blame in here is the nesting ground of blame out there. If I take the bait and make a trade out of a temptation, I cement the lie. Condemnation is rubber cement. It makes the false identity stick. Recognition is solvent. It dissolves the glue without a fight. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus. In Christ consciousness, conscious oneness, the fog of accusation burns off. I then am free to watch a thought arise and pass without personal shame, because I have not consented to be its instrument. I do not collapse under it. I do not war with it. I recognize and release it. In that instant, breath remembers its rhythm, the jaw softens, and I am back at the gate where I belong. Dominion is restored without a struggle. Because no person was opposed, only a suggestion was unmasked. Now, outwardly, the same law stands. The other person is not my enemy. Let me repeat that. The other person is not my enemy. If I believe they are, I have already joined mesmerism's army and turned my sword against my own self, for you are an extension of myself. My interests are your interest. My supply is your supply. My peace is your peace. When I see a brother or a sister acting from controlled fear, I refuse to personalize it. They were but an instrument through which an impersonal error attempted to operate. I do not have to canonize their act. I simply will not demonize their person. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, is the Master's way of closing the door to condemnation while keeping the gate of discernment wide awake. Make this minute and practical. The supervisor barks an order. A loved one revises the plan at the last moment. A stranger cuts in line. The ego magnet pulls. Defend, attack, explain, win. I feel it. I name it impersonal control fear. I will not let it borrow my mouth, my hand, my pen. I breathe the I on the exhale gently, quietly. I stand still and let the temperature drop. I remember there is only one I, and in that I, there is no warfare. I can say yea or nay without heat, set a boundary without bruise, correct without condemnation. Why? Because I am not speaking as Joel in a duel. I am the gentle I in governance. Perfect love casteth out fear, not perfect argument. Love unplugs the current from the hypnotism so it cannot light the quarrel. Do not imagine, because I speak it plainly, that this is accomplished without practice. I had my long periods of practice. Sometimes that control fear still tries to slip through the gate dressed in moral urgency, and sometimes for a moment it may get the best of me, but not for too long. I snap out of it. How? By refusing blame both ways. I refuse to blame myself. I refuse to blame you. I identify suggestion as suggestion, and I return to office. I watch. I refuse. I admit only truth. I maintain dominion. This is liberation from blame. It is not the weakness of excusing. It is the strength of discerning. It is the end of quarrel at its root, because when the I is recognized as the only self, there is no enemy left to fight and no sinner left to condemn. Judge not, that ye be not judged, is not a moral platitude. It is a method of maintaining dominion. For when I see control fear as impersonal suggestion, I regain dominion without a fight. I stand as I abide. And in that abiding, the mesmerism falls of its own weight, and peace already present stands forth. Now the demonstration, because without embodiment you will imagine this is theory, and then Joe will try to apply a theory and call it dominion. Who moves the hand? Look at it. This hand can neither give nor withhold of itself. It is a piece of meat and bone. If it opens, something opens it. If it closes, something closes it. If it writes a generous check or delivers a cruel blow, something unseen directs the motion. In him we live and move and have our being. Movement witnesses government. The hand testifies that an authority, invisible, intimate, nearer than nerve, is present. That authority is not a swaggering Joe. That authority is the gentle I. Now, where is this I located for your awareness? Not in the head is a word. The word God is 3 letters. Spirit is 6. Even the word I spoken from the skull is only air. But the I mean, rises from within closer than breathing. You will find it in the chest, not as anatomy, but as seat. All the other words come up out of the head. I comes up out of the heart center, through the lungs as a warmth, as a weightless weight, as a quiet pressure that says, I am. The Spirit of God hath made me, and the breath of the Almighty hath given me life. The proof of dominion is that breath remembers its maker without your counting. You do not manage a single inhale when you are asleep, and yet you live. Who governs the breath? I, not Joel with a stopwatch, but I, the I and the Father are one. Let me expose the counterfeit so you can feel the true personal control lives in the forehead and the jaw. It furrows, it clamps, it presses the tongue against the palate, it squints the eyes into problem-solving slits. It is top-heavy. It tries to push thought from the brow like a plow. And the more it pushes, the shallower the breath, the tighter the neck, the noisier the mind. That is the strain that proves misidentification. Dominion, by contrast, feels like settledness, lower, deeper, chest wide, abdomen soft, pelvis grounded, breath unhurried. The head bows to the heart. The mind takes its seat before the throne within and waits to be told. Be still and know that I am God. Be still, not merely an idea. Be still in tissue, in diaphragm, in the rhythm of breath. Now do not argue about dominion. Feel it. Place your attention not on the forehead, where debate lives, but in the center of the chest, where consent lives. I do not try to breathe. I witness breath being breathed. On the exhale, let the word I ride out like a feather. Not an effort, a release. On the inhale, receive without grasping. As you do, watch how the shoulders drop of themselves, how the jaw unlatches of itself, how the hands, once tense, now rest alert without curl. This is not hypnosis. This is government. He breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. To become soul aware is to feel breath as I's own motion. Try it with a hand. Do not command it. Do not dramatize it. Let the chest remember I. Then notice how, when a thought of giving arises, The hand opens as if it had always meant to. When a boundary is required, the palm faces outward without heat. When silence is wisdom, the fingers rest as if rooted. Something directs. I direct. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. Translated, Joel can of himself do nothing. I within me doeth the works, and the body consents. Therefore I say again, dominion is not an idea I assert. It is an I presence I feel. It is the quiet weight in the chest that steadies the mind, slows the breath, orders the members. It is gentleness that moves like law. Do not hurry this. Attend, remain. Let breath reveal the governor, and let the hand bear witness. When the eye is seated, thought will obey without a struggle, and body will fall into line without a command. In that felt knowing, control ends, dominion begins, and peace, quiet, practical, embodied, takes its rightful place. Now the next step, and it will sound radical to the intellect, but it is freedom to the heart. As long as I juggle words, God, spirit, power, principle, presence, I may be living in the echo of truth instead of the truth itself. I cannot permit even holy vocabulary to substitute for awareness. Words are signposts. They are not the country. They are 3 and 5 and 7-letter links rising up out of the head. And while I am debating them, I am suspiciously noisy. Be still and know that I am God. Be still first. Cease the commerce of labels. Let knowing arise where words cannot go. There is one word I cannot get rid of, and it is not even a word as the head uses words. It is I. Do you remember that I warned you not to mix Joel and I? Now I warn you not to mix God and the word God. The word God is 3 letters. The mind can carve it into doctrines and walls. Spirit is 6 letters. Power is 5. Christ is 6. Even love, the sweetest of all, can become an idol the intellect bows to, while the heart remains ungoverned. Strip them, one by one, like garments at the threshold of the sanctuary. Let them fall. God drop it. Spirit drop it. Power drop it. Christ drop it. Love drop it. Law, health, supply, salvation, drop them. Do not be afraid. You are not discarding reality. You are setting down its labels. When the labels have fallen, what remains aware? I am that I am. Not a concept, not a syllable, but the living fact nearer than breath. Now let me correct a danger, because here the ego would like to masquerade. It would seize that I and dress it in velvet, march it through the streets, and call it spiritual kingship. That is the swashbuckler I. That is Joe with a crown. Put up thy sword. The I that remains when words fall is not personal pride. It cannot boast because it includes all. It is the universal self. Before Abraham was, I am. Because I am the only self, I am thyself. My interests are your interests. There is no my health and thy health. There is health. There is no my supply and thy supply. There is supply. The I that says I am in the secret place is simultaneously the life of the bird, the sap of the tree, the breath in the sleeper. Therefore it is gentle. For whom should it conquer? It is meek. For whom should it impress? It is quiet, for it has nothing to sell. Practice this subtraction until it becomes a door. Sit and without hurry let the breath remember its rhythm. Place attention in the chest, not the skull. Take the word God into awareness and see it as ink on a page, and let it fade. Take spirit, let it fade. Take every sacred synonym, every reverent title, and let it fade. You are not despising them. You are using them rightly unto silence. When the mind reaches again for a label, I answer, not that only I. On the exhale, let I ride like a feather, not a shout, a consent. On the inhale, receive without grasping. Notice how, in the shedding of titles, a warmth gathers in the chest, a weightless weight, a certainty that requires no vocabulary. That is the Holy of Holies. That is I. In that holy place, there is no one left to manage God. There is no manager at all. There is governor. I am not steering the universe with slogans. I am yielding to Aya's law, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. And when only I remains, governance is effortless. Thought obeys without argument. The hand knows when to open and when to be still. The tongue speaks yea and nay without heat. The body yields to order as a field yields to dawn. Dominion appears natural and unstrained because it is not a performance, it is presence. I will not pretend that this subtraction is accomplished once and for all by a single sitting. The mind loves its toys and will rummage for a word to hold. Smile at it and let it go again. Return to the chest. Breathe I on the exhale. When your breathing slows to almost imperceptible, when the mind has no more purchase because there is nothing to argue, that is your evidence. The kingdom of God is within you. Within what? Within this unspeaking I. And from that within, I then am the bread of life to this moment. I then am the resurrection and the life to this body. I am immortality, but say it in the sanctuary. Say it as recognition, never as advertisement. Keep the I gentle. Keep it free of ornaments. Keep it universal. Therefore, I assume conscious dominion now by stripping away every concept until only I remains. I do not manage. I yield. I do not perform. I abide. And in that abiding, life governs itself through me, quietly, lawfully, inevitably. I and the Father are one, not as a phrase, as a state. And in that state, strain ends of itself because nothing is left to clench. Only I, only I, only I. Now the method, because I must not leave you with poetry when a practice is required. Sit, not slump, not rigid seated as in a small throne that is only large enough for one. Feet grounded, spine upright without bravado. Soften the eyes. Let the gaze unhook so that you are not hunting the world with pupils. Unclasp the jaw. Let the tongue rest on the floor of the mouth. Shoulders down and slightly back, not in parade, but in consent. Hands easy in the lap, open or lightly touching, ready but not reaching. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. I assume my post in the inner office by my posture before I speak a word. Now breathe gently, not counting, not pushing. Let the inhale come to you as a gift. Let the exhale be your giving back. On the exhale, let the word I write out not from the forehead where concepts live, but from the chest where consent lives. A feather, not a trumpet, no strain. On the inhale, receive without grasping, again and again. I do not say it loudly. I do not grind it in the skull. I breathe it as the felt sense of being. The breath of the Almighty hath given me life. I let that breath testify, and I agree. The success marker is simple and sure. When the breathing slows of itself and becomes almost imperceptible, when the diaphragm moves like a tide under moonlight and not like oars in a storm, the mind is yielding to the deeper government. Street noise in the head fades. Sentences loosen their grip. A warmth gathers in the chest, a weightless weight, and I know the eye is seated. The peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds. Peace keeps. I do not have to clutch it. Now the inward travel. Begin at the heart center. Do not imagine anatomy. Recognize life. On the exhale, whisper I, and inwardly acknowledge, I am the life of this heart. I am the law of its rhythm. Move to the lungs. I am the breath of these lungs. I am the ease of their exchange. Slide awareness to the stomach. I am the quiet fire that digests. I am the order of assimilation. Down to the pelvis. I am stability. I am root. Along both legs to the feet. I am balance. I am the surety of step. Up through the spine. I am alignment. I am the law of uprightness. Shoulders and arms. I am gentleness and strength. I direct these members in giving and in boundary. Hands. I am the openness that offers and the wisdom that withholds. Neck and jaw. I am release. I am the end of clench. Face and brow. I am the soft light that needs no squint. Eyes. I am vision that does not hunt but sees. Each station is not a command. It is recognition. I do not boss the body. I identify its governor. In him we live and move and have our being. Keep the cadence that trains obedience. I rest. I listen. I consent. I maintain dominion. Say it with the breath. I rest. Shoulders drop. I listen. Mind hushes. I consent. Heart warms. I maintain dominion. The I remains seated. Again, I rest. I listen. I consent. I maintain dominion. Do not hurry to finish. Let the body believe you by the rhythm you keep. When thought strays, I do not chase it. I return to breath and to the chest. On the exhale, I. On the inhale, receive. If a sensation arises, I do not dramatize. I include that region in my inward travel and let the gentle I be recognized there as life, as law, as order. If an emotion surges, I do not argue. I breathe the I until the surge has no current to ride. Be still and know that I am God. Be still is the technique. Know is the fruit. Make this practice the opening and the seal of your day. 3 minutes at dawn, 3 at noon, 3 at dusk, and linger longer when the gate is crowded. In time, the breath will become almost imperceptible within moments. That is evidence of trained readiness. Then, when action is required, I rise not as Joel in a hurry, but as the gentle I in office. My hand moves without strain. My speech is yea, nay, or silence as given. My mind obeys the throne it has learned to trust. Therefore, I assume conscious dominion in this most practical way. I breathe the I until the mind obeys, and I govern quietly from within. Now we extend the circle. Dominion that remains a private sanctuary would tempt me to call it mine. But there is no private kingdom in the one. If there is one self, there is no private supply to hoard, no private health to defend, no private good to bargain for. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, because I and the Father are one, and because you and I are one, in that my interests are your interests. There is no my health and thy health. There is health. There is no my supply and thy supply. There is supply. I must maintain this truth at the door of thought, or else the old conflict economics will re-enter and set us at odds over illusions. Hear the law plainly. If I attempt to gain at your expense, I have impoverished myself, for you are an extension of myself. If I wrongfully deprive anyone, I am depriving myself, capital M, of its own expression. Whatsoever ye do unto the least of these, ye do unto me. There is only one me, one I. Therefore, I cannot permit the thought that my increase requires your decrease to enter the sanctuary of consciousness. I stand the porter at the door of thought and refuse admission to any whisper of rivalry. I deny entry to the suggestion of two powers, two minds, two competing lives. One life, one mind, one power. And in that oneness, quarrel loses its oxygen. Now you will ask, does this mean I let people run over me? No. That is control fear speaking in the negative. I do not dominate, and I am not dominated. I realize. True dominion never dominates people. It recognizes the one I as their true identity. And in that recognition, coercion becomes unnecessary. Authority without force is the natural atmosphere of oneness. Love thy neighbor as thyself is not sentimental ethics. It is a statement of identity. Thyself is myself. Because I am thyself, I can set a boundary without bruise. I can say yea or nay without heat. I can correct without condemnation. Perfect love, oneness, realize, casteth out fear, and with fear goes the entire machinery of pressure. Let me make it practical. Where friction breeds in the family, a child resists the plan, or a partner forgets an agreement. Instinct flares. Control, compel, explain louder. I cannot permit this. I return to office. I breathe the I on the exhale until the inner weather clears. I refuse to admit the thought of two competing selves in this house. I look at the one before me, and silently I confess, I am thyself. The same life that breathes me, breathes you. The same law that orders me, orders you. Now speak, if speech is given. Often the tone changes before the words do. The heat drops. The sentence shortens to a clean yea or a clean nay. And where a lecture would have birthed resistance, a gentle word establishes order. A soft answer turneth away wrath. Soft does not mean weak. Soft means free of the grit of separation. At work, the team pulls in different directions, and the old arithmetic begins. My credit versus yours. My idea against your idea. I stand as a tiler over mind and body and, yes, over the collective suggestion infiltrating this room. I will not consent to two minds. One mind is the creative source of this project. I silently acknowledge I am the intelligence here, not as Joel's advantage, but as universal mind expressing itself where we stand. In that acknowledgement, I become transparent. I do not push my plan. I let mind reveal the plan. Strangely, and yet not strangely, someone across the table speaks the very string we needed, and it carries none of the friction I would have met had I tried to force it. I have not won. We have awakened. There was one body and one spirit. Even in conflict that seems structural nations, classes, parties. I do my assigned part not by enlarging the quarrel, but by refusing two-life thinking in my own consciousness. I vote. I serve. I speak as led. But I do not feed the hypnotism of enemies. If I must oppose a policy, I oppose it as a shadow without calling the person's darkness. Judge not, that ye be not judged. I keep my post at the gate of thought. Only one eye, only one good, only one law. And in the degree of that realization, antagonism finds no handhold. Peace is not negotiated. It is revealed where oneness is felt. Therefore, I train myself to think and act from unity until it becomes instinct. In the home, in the market, in the street, I whisper within, my interests are your interests. My supply is your supply. My peace is your peace. I cannot take from you without taking from myself, and I cannot bless you without being blessed. I assume conscious dominion over relationship by refusing the lie of separation, and I discover that when I abide as the gentle I, others unconsciously relax. The current of compulsion dries up. The conversation finds its righteous simplicity. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Peacemaking is not strategy. It is identity recognizing itself. In that recognition, the quarrel ends, not by conquest, but by the revelation that there were never two to fight. Now turn your eyes outward, not to escape withinness, but to verify it. Behold the fowls of the air, your heavenly Father feedeth them. Who teaches the bird to cross oceans on a moonless night and arrive at the same narrow strip of shore? Joel does not. I do. Not the personal eye with binoculars, but the universal eye that is the life of that bird. Ask now the beasts, and they shall teach thee, and the fowls of the air, and they shall tell thee. They tell me what? That dominion is effortless being, life governed from within, not managed from without. Consider the seed. No board meetings in the dark soil, no calendar on the root. A soft insistence rises, splits a husk, curves a pale shoot upward, opens a leaf in the right direction without an argument. Who instructs that geometry? I. Consider the tree. It drinks rain without greed, lifts branch toward light without haste, sheds leaf in season without regret. It does not strain to be governed. It abides governance. Now hear the correction. Where strain appears, a personal mind has interfered. It is not the river that worries. It is the engineer in the cranium. Which of you, by taking thought, can add 1 cubit unto his stature? Not one, but the stature is added by the quiet law already at work. Bring it home to the flesh you call yours. I do not plan the length of a fingernail in the night, and yet it grows. I do not dictate to the marrow, and yet blood is made. I do not pace a corridor, commanding skin to knit, and yet a cut closes. Who governs? I. Not the anxious forehead, the universal I, that is the law of this body. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He restoreth my soul. The restoration is not a project. It is an order proceeding from within to without, when I do not obstruct it with personal management. Therefore, I use nature as my teacher to stabilize dominion. I cannot permit the mind to pretend that governance is something I manufacture with effort. I step outside, balcony, doorstep, field, street tree, and I let sight become sacrament. I look at a blade of grass and silently confess, I am the life of this grass. I look at a tree and confess, I am the intelligence of this tree, not Joel's advantage over it. Not domination of matter, but the one self-living as tree and as me. I watch a sparrow hop, tilt, and lift with no committee in its head. And I confess, I am the lift in that wing. Do not make poetry of it. Make recognition of it. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. The fullness is I. In that recognition, the breath slows of itself, the chest warms with that weightless weight, and inner government is verified by outer witness. Set yourself a simple assignment. Daily, yes. Daily stand with something living and let it teach you. 1 minute in the morning with a tree by your door. 1 minute at noon listening to a bird, even in the city where its song weaves through engines. 1 minute at dusk watching the sky change without advice. On the exhale, gently breathe I and admit I am the life here. On the inhale, receive the already present order. If a thought intrudes to manage, smile and let the tree outgovern you. Be still and let governance be seen. Consider the lilies how they grow. They toil not, they spin not. Learn not toil by watching not toil, until your mind learns to bow where life already is, Lord. Then, when you re-enter task and table, you carry the same law into your minutes. The hand moves as branch without strain. The decision opens as seed without debate. The breath rises and falls as tide without command. I do not conquer nature. I reveal that nature and I are one, I. And in that revelation, dominion is no longer a posture to maintain. It is the way things are. Quiet, lawful, inevitably good. Now, I will not pretend that this awareness never flickers. I had my long periods of practice, and sometimes still the old manager tries to slip back into the chair. A message arrives. A plan shifts. A face hardens across the table, and for a moment the jaw sets. The breath shortens. The forehead takes command. Control habits return. Fear suggests itself again. Sometimes it seems to get the best of me briefly. That is not tragedy. That is the very bell that rings me back to office. A just man falleth 7 times and riseth up again. I rise by recognition, not by argument. Here is how I snap out of it. First, I notice strain. I feel the shallow breath, the tight tongue, the heat behind the eyes. I do not explain it. I recognize it. Second, I name it honestly. This is personal control, not dominion. I do not put perfume on it. I do not baptize it with holy terms. I say to myself, Joel has seized the wheel again. Third, I return to breath, I, not later, not when it is convenient now. On the exhale, I let the word I ride like a feather from the chest. On the inhale, I receive 2 or 3 such breaths, gentle, not forced. Fourth, I resume my post. I consciously stand here as porter at the door of thought and as tiler over mind and body. I say within, nothing enters that defileth, that accuseth, that divides. Only I. Only one mind, only one life. And when the breath slows to almost imperceptible, when the jaw unhooks and the shoulders descend of themselves, I know the chair is occupied again by the rightful governor. He restoreth my soul. I must warn you of the subtlest thief, spiritual pride. The very moment I congratulate myself, see how calm I am. See how quickly I returned. I have already drifted from the gentle I into the egotistical I. That congratulator is not spirit. It is the swashbuckler polishing his medals. God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace unto the humble. Therefore I keep the eye gentle. I make no spiritual show. I do not advertise my recoveries. Let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth. When stillness returns, I take my seat and get on with the business of being governed. If a testimony is called for, it will be given without embroidery. If it is not called for, I keep holy things holy and quiet things quiet. Now, yes, there are days when the suggestion cycles back every hour. Hypnotism, mesmerism, suggestion, impersonal error, knocks and knocks again. Very well. I cannot permit discouragement to enter with it. I repeat the protocol as often as the bell rings. Recognize strain. Name it personal control. Return to breath, I. Resume the porter's post. I rest. I listen. I consent. I maintain dominion. Again, I rest. I listen. I consent. I maintain dominion. Pray without ceasing. Do you see? This is not anxious repetition. It is training. With a violin, you place the finger 1,000 times until the hand remembers. With dominion, you place attention in the chest 1,000 times until mind and body remember their governor. Do not ask for graduation. Ask for faithfulness. Line upon line, precept upon precept, here a breath, there a breath, until the atmosphere of I surrounds your minutes as naturally as oxygen. There will come a season when you notice, not that you never slip, but that you slip for briefer moments. Not that fear never suggests itself, but that it cannot find a perch. Not that you must demand obedience, but that thought obeys because it loves its rightful king. Let not your heart be troubled, not because trouble never knocks, but because I stand the watch within and refuse admission. Therefore I assume conscious dominion not by boasting of perfection, but by returning. I die daily to Joel's management, and I rise daily in the gentle eye. If I stumble forward into recognition. If I forget, I remember sooner. If pride whispers, I bow, and it has no more air. And in that rhythm, recognize, name, breathe, resume. The governance of life becomes durable, elastic, practical. I then am kept by the peace that passeth understanding, not by my vigilance, but by my willingness to be governed. I cannot permit strain to define me. Dominion is maintained by repeated return to the gentle eye, and in that constancy, even relapse serves the training. Return unto thy rest, O my soul, for the Lord hath dealt bountifully with thee. I return, and in that return I am kept. Now we seal this not with a flourish, but with a seat taken. I cannot permit the mind to wander off, imagining a finale and fireworks. Dominion is not spectacle. It is occupancy. Be still and know that I am God. I am still, I know. The strain that once announced my misidentification has served its purpose. It pointed to the false manager. I dismiss him. I abide in the gentle eye. Therefore, I assume conscious dominion not to conquer, not to perform, not to manage, but to let governance be what it is, a quiet law operating from within to without, free of theater, free of warfare, free of any clenched will. Here the identity, measured and holy. I am life. I am peace. I am the bread of life. I am resurrection in the life. I am the law of order in this mind and this body. I am the rest of this heart, the ease of these lungs, the clarity of this thought. Now remember the warning, do not mix Joel and I. This is not a swashbuckling parade. Put up thy sword, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. I and the Father are one, and because there is but one self, this I is universal. It includes you, it includes the bird, it includes the leaf. In such inclusiveness, boasting is impossible. In such oneness, strain has no office. I set the practice as a daily sacrament, not a sometimes remedy. At waking, before the world speaks, I take my post as porter at the door of thought, and as tiler over mind and body. 2, 3, 5. Breaths gentle, unforced. On the exhale, on the inhale, receive. When the breath grows quiet and almost imperceptible, I know the throne is occupied. I affirm within, nothing enters that defileth, accuseth, or divides. Only I, only one mind, only one life. Before calls, before doors, before meals, I pause for a single exhale of I and let peace precede me. In friction, I refuse the lie of two. I confess, my interests are your interests. My supply is your supply. My peace is your peace. I keep the cadence that trains obedience. I rest. I listen. I consent. I maintain dominion. And now the fruit, not because I strive for fruit, but because life reveals itself under right government. He restoreth my soul. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. In this waiting, that is not delay, but residency, I witness renewal, regeneration in tissues where fatigue had written its story, restoration of rhythm where anxiety had scribbled, relationships soften as if winter had stepped back and sap returned. Decisions clarify without argument. Supply appears as flow rather than prize. The old cycles of push and crash loosen their grip because the one life is unbroken, and now I am consenting to be its transparency. Behold, I make all things new. Newness does not clang, it dawns. Resurrection is not reserved for graves. It is the rising of right identity now. Each time I yield Joel's management and let I abide, something rises that had been buried. Courage without hardness, tenderness without fear, intelligence without hurry. Ascension is not flight from earth. It is the lifting of consciousness above the weather of appearances so that earth can look like heaven where I stand. Peace be unto you. Peace is not after the battle. Peace is the absence of battle because there are not two to fight. Let us close properly, not with a door shut against the world, but with a door kept from within. I do not depart from this practice. I carry it. I am the breath quieting this room. I am the law harmonizing this task. I am the gentleness ending this quarrel before it begins. I am life. I am peace. I am the bread of life to this moment. I am resurrection, where discouragement had laid a stone. I am that I am. And in that I am, I take my seat and keep it quiet. Sure, unafraid. Surely goodness and mercy follow me, because I do not run ahead of myself. Therefore, I assume conscious dominion now. And in that quiet assumption, life harmonizes without strain, renewal, regeneration, resurrection, ascension, until the day breath itself is one seamless prayer. Ye, ye, ye.